Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Collision Live. Daniel here, and as always, joined at the desk by the Godzilla to my King Kong, Mr. Sam David Camp. What's up?
Good to be with you, Daniel.
Yeah, another week of pop culture controversies, just crazy stuff going on. Again, if you guys are new joining us to the show every week, we just kind of get together and walk through some of what's the latest going on in pop culture.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's a big controversy. Sometimes it's just some geeky thing that we're excited about. You know, sometimes it's something in the middle. We just sort of talk, hey, as Christians kind of called and sent into this world by Christ, commissioned into it, how do we navigate some of these issues of pop culture? And, you know, how can, as Christians, we contribute to the conversations that are happening all around us in culture through the entertainment industry and the arts? And again, this is a week in particular that it seems like there are some kind of bigger conversations going on, you know, some more maybe heavy or significant stuff that I think as Christians we should be engaged with and should have should be joining, and we have a lot to contribute to these conversations. So why don't we just jump right into it? Again, if you guys are watching us live, hey, we'd love for you guys to post your comments, ask questions, kind of dialogue with us if you have a different perspective, or if you just sort of have some thoughts on some of the stuff we're talking about, or just a question, and we'll get to some of that at the end of the show. But the first story for us to kind of get into that has kind of been all over social media, and you know, a lot of people talking about it is the kind of this big debacle, or this big kind of explosion for Teen Vogue.
Yeah.
I know you're a subscriber.
Yeah, but I think I've canceled my subscription after these recent events.
Yeah, well, maybe it might be time, you know, when you hit your 30s. But so Teen Vogue, again, it's this.
I am forever young, Daniel. Let's not forget.
Forever 21. I guess that's not a teen either. But so they were all set to have a new kind of an editor, a real up and coming kind of journalist that she was on the campaign trail with Biden. She's been doing, you know, she's won awards. She's only 27. Alexi McCammon. So she was all ready to take over, and then the day before she was going to be, you know, get awarded as the new editor of Teen Vogue, she resigned, and you know, why don't you kind of spell out some of the, you know, why what led? Did she just have a change of heart, cold feet?
Yeah, something like that. Or it could have been some employees. I'm not even sure who the employees are. We can maybe get into it later, but some employees at the company felt that she was still a racist and a homophobe because she posted some tweets 10 years ago. So if you're a math type, that was when she was 17 years old. She posted some tweets that were not nice, which she has on a number of occasions apologized for, which the people that hired her and like cleared her through all of the various, like you don't get to be about to be the editor in chief having not gone through extensive HR stuff, especially at a major publication. They had all signed off on it. Like everyone was fine with it, except, and then at the 11th hour, as it were, there were some very disgruntled employees who, you know, were outraged and deeply offended.
And it's one of those things where, you know, she resigned, but it's, you know, the reality is she was forced out. There was too much noise, too much controversy, too much pressure. Again, and we're gonna get into you know, some of them. Were they right to do so? Again, these are tweets that she made, you know, 10 years ago when she was 17. You know, and again, she apologized for last year when they first surfaced. She apologized again when she was you know, stepping into this new role. But again, for some people on the staff, it wasn't enough. You know, they still didn't think she should take the position. I think it raises an interesting, again, you know, in some ways it falls back into this, you know, the cancel culture thing, but even kind of beyond just that, I think it just raises a question as far as like, what's sort of the role of like grace and like the allowance, you know, the understanding that people can mature and change views, like especially in like a digital, again, we're sort of the generation that was sort of born or raised into it. Yeah. And obviously the younger generations are definitely into that. But, you know, sort of this digital where things, you know, we sort of missed it, just the cusp of like.
We sort of grew up with.
Yeah, we didn't have Twitter
when we
were teenagers. You know, stupid things that we said aren't recorded forever. Thank goodness. But, you know, for a new kind of generation, really from this point forward, unless things somehow change, this is going to be a question that keeps coming up as far as like how much does a person, like how much penance do they have to pay for the past? And as Christians, like how should we sort of be responding to this? What are some of your...
well, I would say this, like the new religious order, let's call it, of Wokistan, to borrow a phrase from Eric Weinstein. There is no such thing as grace or forgiveness or repentance or second chances. It doesn't exist. And this is another example of the fact that it doesn't exist. It's like, no, from 10 years ago, you should have had the forethought to know that in this moment today, these things were like, taboo, and we point to, the fact that Obama was against gay marriage when he was like entering his second term in office,
Yeah,
and
obviously
it's like,
people...
okay, so either people evolve, people change, or whoever they were at whatever, you pick a time, and typically it's their worst moment in their history. This ideology of political correctness, or whatever you want to call it, says that no, you are actually forever that person at your worst moment, and you could never redeem yourself or never do enough penance to overcome that.
Yeah, because there's sort of two... obviously there's hey, you're 17, people that are young. My wife's a middle school teacher. Like, people say things that they shouldn't say. So there's that side of it. Like, hey, she was young, but kind of in addition to that, it's also just 10 years. People, she's still a young lady that said things. Again, that's not to necessarily affirm what she said, and she's apologized for it. But it's just it's another kind of like demonstration or example, like case study of just sort of what does a culture look like devoid of just grace or forgiveness. It kind of reminded me of like the James Gunn controversy a couple of years ago. Again, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. There were some tweets, some old jokes he had posted, which were just vile and not funny and disgusting. Surfaced, and again, more old tweets that he had apologized publicly several times over the years. People kind of made a fuss about it, and for at least he was kind of put in Disney jail, and he was brought out of it eventually, and I think rightfully so. But it's just sort of this idea that it's not necessarily who you are today; it's who you used to be or what you used to said. Even if you kind of won't acknowledge it, or you're sort of tied to that. And like, so what does that mean for obviously we can say that's wrong, and we can we can kind of feel that it's sort of tragic for people like this young journalist that's going to lose her career is going to be impacted. But as this sort of like Christians, how do we contribute to that conversation?
Well, if only there was a worldview that had sort of grace and forgiveness baked into it from the outset. If only there was.
Is there a?
I don't know. I think Christianity maybe has some elements of forgiveness baked into the cake. Maybe Jesus had some things to say about
he might have alluded
grace and these ideas of perhaps withholding judgment and turning the other cheek and some of these things. But yeah, I mean, I think this is I think where Christians should stand up and say, like, we as sinners, as people who were once lost, are 100% okay with the fact that you used to be one way, and now you're not that way. Like, we don't hold people to who they were before they came to know the Lord, or before they became Christians.
That's kind of like baked into the DNA of Christianity. Again, we had at our 2 days ago at church, we had a powerful testimony of someone that's complete life change, and like we affirm that, hey, that's part of what Jesus came to offer, is that we're not just forever tied to mistakes in our past. And again, it doesn't mean that words and actions don't have consequences, or we shouldn't acknowledge them and talk through them and call them wrong, even if it was done in youth. But it's I don't know. As I was looking at this, there's part of me that wants to be just sort of like, oh, not again. Like this is just such an ugly, graceless society. Like, where are we going? The other side for me is like, hey, what an opportunity for Christianity.
Yeah.
That's in the middle of this culture that just seems to have no grace, no forgiveness. Like you can never, pay enough, for the sins of your past. Like you're always, you always got to do more good to try and make up for it and feel more shame. And it's like, hey, that's.
And the scales are always changing.
Yeah.
It's like, the terms are not fixed.
Yeah. And again, we don't need to get into it. Actually, we can move on to the next thing. But like the irony is like the staff members that brought this and kind of make a big fuss about this. One of the main ones, someone dug into her own tweets and found that she had been using racial words and the N-word in her tweets. And so I think as of right now, like all the staff members that were kind of behind some of this have all set their Twitter accounts to private as they go through. And it's
well, maybe the last thing I'll say on this is it shows at least from our perspective looking in, like obviously we're not privy to all the conversations that went on that led to this, but at least looking at it, it shows the absolute cowardice of the people that were attempting to hire her. Like they did all the background checks and they were all fine with it. And then because you have some real fussy, like, at least in my mind, it's like those employees should not have, like, their desks should be clean the next morning.
Yeah.
And there just should not be people in leadership who are absolutely failing at leadership. And it's just, that's.
I sort of see it. They always say the revolution eats itself. And you sort of see that. Like, it's not sustainable.
Eventually you run out of heads to guillotine.
A culture without kind of grace and forgiveness can't stay propped up. And I think that's where, as Christians, we need to be ready to show, hey, we can forgive and we can accept that people change. So again, we'll keep kind of tabs. I'm sure she'll bounce back and find a new.
Yeah, I think she'll be fine.
She'll find a new career. But again, I think we have a lot to offer to that conversation. Another conversation and a conversation that was going on between some key figures that we can get into. Hey, even Hitler made another appearance as he tends to do in these pop culture conversations. So the Grammys happened a little bit ago, and we just didn't choose that to talk about.
Because
we were sort of over award shows.
Because who watches the Grammys?
Yeah, and a lot of people are just going by the ratings, have tuned out. So again, we didn't talk about the controversial Cardi B performance. Maybe we thought we dodged a bullet by that one, but hey, we're dragged back into it. So Skillet, who is actually one of the first two like rock bands that I ever listened to, so I owe them a debt. I was listening to like soft Wow 99 kind of compilations, and then I discovered Skillet, Unshakable, and some of those albums, and so that really started me on my path to becoming a hard rock metalhead. I like Skillet. Again, I don't really listen to them now, but I respect that they're very outspoken for their faith, and they have not wavered despite kind of achieving sort of the highest echelon of success as Christian. But so the singer, is it John Cooper? I think John Cooper.
I think so, yeah.
He has sort of a podcast thing he does where he shares some of his thoughts, and he was commentating on the Grammys, saying, hey, this is sort of a microcosm of our society that that not only is this sort of this real overly sexualized and performances on TV and all that was going on in this, but also just that as a culture now we're expected to applaud and support it, and we can't sort of criticize it, and in doing so he kind of compared it to a culture that calls good or good bad and bad good, and he kind of uses, as people tend to do these days, using like Nazis and Hitler and how he used to try and liberate people by doing the same thing. And again, because of his podcast commentating on it, it sort of blew up into this. I found it because it was trending on Twitter. Cardi B sort of slapped back saying like, hey, you're calling me Hitler? Like, what are you? And then he came back with trying to clarify his comments. But I think there's a lot in this sort of messy discussion. I think Cooper's right. This is like a microcosm in a lot of ways of just sort of cultural engagement and Christians in a culture that seems to be applauding a lot of stuff that we aren't applauding. But sort of any sort of general thoughts before we kind of get into some of the
well, and I think we've said this before with the Gina Carano exit from Disney is it's generally speaking a bad idea to compare anything to Hitler, Nazi, and the Holocaust. Like, if you can make your point without going there, you're probably better off. And so,
because there's sort of a tendency to like, it's like the most extreme evil. So anytime we're talking about evil, it's like
because
just like Hitler did.
Because I think then that whole thing has distracted from what we think would be a valid point that he's making, is that we're in a place now in culture where you need to applaud the sort of fringes of culture, and you need to celebrate what they're doing, when in fact you may disagree with what they're doing. And I was reading an article about it, and the article sort of conflates what Cooper was doing with cancel culture. It's like, oh, he doesn't like cancel culture, but but he's trying to cancel Cardi. And I think a more nuanced read of that is he's not trying to cancel her. He's trying to just show that like he can critique that or criticize it, and like he's not calling on NBC or whoever does the Grammys to like ban that performance or something, or even her. There's a difference between like criticizing something and saying no one should watch this.
Yeah,
and you had a really good tweet about this.
I think actually we have the tweet
earlier.
We can throw it. So this is what because again, I think one of the main things with this whole discussion is just sort of a misunderstanding, I guess, of what cancel culture is. And like, hey, if you're against cancel culture, does that mean that you have to be for everything? Like, because a lot of people are accusing him of being inconsistent. And here's sort of how someone can probably say it more eloquent than I can, but like, so not cancel culture. I don't like this, so I won't support it or use it. And then cancel culture. I don't like this, so nobody can support or use it, and they should be punished or shamed for even offering it in the first place.
Yeah.
So again, it's not cancel culture to unsubscribe to Disney Plus because you don't agree with what Disney's doing behind the scenes. Like, that's not cancel culture, because Disney Plus is still operating. It's just you're choosing not to invest. And I think that is sort of what Cooper kind of lost in some of his the Hitler analogies. Is what he's trying to get at is saying like, it's there has to be a place to kind of an openness and an allowance to criticize things and to talk about things and to call things that you feel are evil and kind of against the example Christ gave. Like, there has to be a place for that, and it's not cancel culture. You're not necessarily trying to ruin their career or like police in a sort of a legalistic way. But hey, we as Christians, like, how do we respond to something like a Cardi B performance? Like, do we try and cancel that? Is there a way to do it? Like, what do you think? Like, what are some of the ways to?
On the one hand, we can't control necessarily what studios are doing, or we can't police behavior, and I don't think we should be trying to police behavior that we necessarily disagree with. But I think we can just make our voice heard on issues that that affect us, or that we think need to be addressed. And so I think there's a difference between making your voice heard and then trying to like cancel somebody for doing something that you just disagree with. And so I think that's sort of the point that he was trying to make, is that you need to be able to criticize. And if you can't it's a very dangerous world, and a world that I think most people don't want to live in, even those who maybe promote cancel culture, to say that dissent or difference of opinion cannot be tolerated. And so I think to try and keep those differences of opinion alive and in the public square, to say, actually, no, we do disagree with this performance, and think it's not healthy for a society to have, or whatever, that we should be allowed to do that. And I think that is more healthy for a society than just saying like, oh, well, let the world's just being the world. Like,
because like canceling something is sort of the end. It sort of ends, or tries to at least, like put a period at the end of the conversation, and then you sort of, if you can put out enough fires fast enough, then you don't have to deal with it. Or I think like what Cooper's trying to say is like, no, like in order to actually work through this as a healthy society and as Christians, like we need to talk about it. I guess we need to engage. And one of sort of the nuances that kind of related that I noticed sort of coming up in this is, because in Cooper's video, he talks about like Dr. Seuss saying like, hey, in a culture that you're not even allowed to sell these books on eBay anymore because they're too troubling and disturbing, and some of the racial stuff to even have the opportunity for people to read them. He's saying, it is at the same time kind of celebrating some of this way overly sexualized sort of shock art kind of stuff. And one of the things you see like responses to Cooper is like, hey, you don't like it? Don't watch it. Like, just turn off the channel. Yeah. And again, I think we should. Like, we didn't. Yeah. We did. We didn't like the Grammys. We didn't watch it. And a lot of people, millions and millions of people, didn't watch it. But you kind of see the two, like, at the same time. Hey, if you think Dr. Seuss books are harmful, then just don't buy them for your kids. Like, there is some level of like, no, like, you need to be able to like call things that are wrong, and like have that discussion. Yeah. And I think what he was trying to say is like, with things like the racial, some of these books and stuff, we're just sort of ending the discussion. Like, it's not okay just to close the cover. Like, you can't even have the opportunity, the temptation to buy it. Where with the sexual stuff, it's just like, hey, just don't watch it then. Just ignore it. Like, like, no, like, we got to talk about this stuff. Yeah, and it is that double standard that we've talked about before. But I think also it shows, it goes kind of back to our first story that, I think Dr. Seuss is a great example of sort of the evolution of a person who, early in his career had some obviously problematic cartoons and whatnot, but later on, like he's promoting the exact opposite of that, and many of his books are promoting the very thing that I think most people today would say, yeah, this is a good thing to like be friends with people that are different than you and be okay to explore a world and be an individual and that kind of stuff that I think nobody has like an issue with. But it's like, how cool is it to be able to see though that like this guy started out pretty narrow-minded, you could say, but through conversations, through travel, through meeting people, he opened his mind to the broader picture. But if you just cancel the first half of the story, it's like the rest of it doesn't have nearly the amount of weight. Like for him to overcome everything that he overcame to be able to write the sort of books that he later wrote, I think paints a more holistic picture of who he was and how he was able to get to where he was, rather than just saying like, well, he never had to battle racism and he just grew up perfectly and of course he had these views. Yeah, it's like there's more. You lose again. It doesn't mean necessarily that you just ignore or praise. You're forced to praise his early stuff, and right. Some of it I think is kind of racial stereotypes, and I don't think that means you ignore that. But it's the understanding that there is change. And again, that's why I got the collision. One of our sort of main, like, we do videos for it, like, is cultural conversations. Yeah. And I know we've been even, with some of our reviews, we've got we've got a lot of nice comments and some not nice comments. And people say, why are you even like talking about this film? Like, beyond just sort of a quick, hey, this is evil, don't watch it. Like, why are you actually digging into it? And I think it's our kind of belief that that's the healthy Christian approach, is to, again, you still guard your hearts and all that, but to actually dig in and dialogue with the issues and what they kind of symbolize. Like, what does the Grammys performance, what is that a microcosm of, and how
it's the last dying gasp of breath from the dying Grammys as they are no more. Like, who knows? Like,
if no one's gonna watch, then you just pull out all the stops and go as shock art as you can. But again, who knows if people are probably gonna try and cancel Skillet. Again, speaking of change, like, I don't know if you grew up listening to Skillet. Like, these guys started off kind of rocky, and they put out at least two CDs that were like soft, almost techno-y. And then all of a sudden, they just like, the Holy Spirit came upon them, and they released like a hard rock CD, which was wonderful. So I think they are an example that you can change for the better, and rediscover your rock and roll roots. Exactly. So again, let us know your thoughts too on this, even if you're watching this later. What do you think of the whole conversation, and how should Christians respond to something like a overly sexualized, performance at the Grammys? Do we just turn off the channel? Do we try and cancel it? Do we have discussion? Let us know. We'd love to talk about some of that. Yeah. So this week at the Collision, got a couple things going on. Again, we encourage you guys, if you're sort of like a video only Collision, if you're just watching these live streams, check out our website, thecollision.org. We have new articles coming up, almost every week on different cultural issues and conversations. And we have an article that will be dropping actually later today, just sort of on making wise entertainment choices and sort of how does Christ's sort of law of love, love God and love people, how does that actually help guide us through entertainment almost better than maybe like a legalistic way would. Again, we also just dropped a review for Zack Snyder's Justice League. I watched that, all 4 hours of that. We'll probably be releasing a video review of that as well, but I did a written review. Again, the short story for a long movie is that it is not good, not a fan. I know a lot of people are excited and love it. I'm not one of those people. So if you've seen it, jump over there and kind of let me know why I'm wrong and why I just hate superheroes and all of that. So cultural conversations, this, which again, if you're joining us for the first time, which sort of our space is to comment on without going into super depth, this cool, interesting things we see happening. And so what do you see going on?
Well, it's not necessarily culture, like pop culture related, but there has been an ongoing eruption in Iceland. There's a volcano erupting
that everyone's calling Mordor.
Exactly. And I just think it's amazing. Like it's sort of this thing like with the Mars landing a few weeks ago, but it's just a reminder that like Earth and the natural world is pretty
super cool,
pretty amazing. And so I've just kind of been geeking out. I've followed some photographers that are over there like making videos and photographing just sort of the evolution of this volcano, and it's just, I don't know, it's just awesome. Like, and it's nice that it's not like destroying people and villages or anything, but it's it's just, you can kind of wonder at just sort of the power of the earth and the natural world. So I've kind of been geeking out on that this past couple of days.
I saw that again because people are saying it looks like Mordor, and that's speaking my love language. Speaking of kind of forces and powers, like William Shatner is like a force of nature. Again, Captain Kirk, the original Captain Kirk. Today is his 90th birthday.
Wow.
Again, I was always a Star Wars kid. I wasn't necessarily a Star Trek person. Again, I think a lot of kids, I was too dumb to be a Star Trek kid back in the day. I just like the pew pew pew. I didn't want to like the deep philosophical stuff. I've tried to kind of get into some of the old ones. Me and my wife, after we first got married, tried to kind of watch some of the original series. At some point, I really want to. I get overwhelmed because I know there's like so many
sort of like
different kinds of shows.
Yeah, like we my wife and I did Doctor Who for a while, and it's just like where does a guy begin the Doctor Who journey? So we just kind of started wherever, and
so again, if you guys are Trekkies, let me know where the best place to like. I'm the way my mind works. Like I always want to start at the beginning and just go through in order.
Yeah.
But if there's an easier kind of gateway to get into that, I've always wanted to watch some of those classic episodes. And then I guess the last thing is actually I forget why I came across it, but I saw it next month is the 20th anniversary of Shrek, which like I don't know how old some of you guys are watching this. Like Shrek is sort of this like a landmark kind of kids movie. It's super influential if you kind of look at sort of what movies were before that and how it influenced future kid movies and animated films and stuff. But like 20 years, like
that's insane that it's that old.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I struggle to believe that. I don't want to believe that.
Yeah, we've had 20 years of Shrek out there. Again, it's crazy how some of these sort of a lot of movies and things come and go, but some of these films are sort of these like kind of monuments for where our culture is, and sometimes you realize how old you are. But any kind of final things going on?
I'm just seeing that March 31st, King vs. Godzilla is coming to HBO.
Who wins?
Nobody.
No one's a winner. Again,
we all suffer at the hands of giants.
But I'm definitely on not a Darwinist, but I'm definitely King Kong. I feel something.
Yeah, if I had to,
definitely put your money. So yeah, we'll definitely be doing a review on that film as well when it comes out, dropping on HBO Max. But hey guys, thanks for joining us again. especially if you've been joining us for several weeks now. I don't know what episode we're on, like 26. We've been doing this for a little while.
Yeah, I think so.
And kind of having fun. Again, we have some new stuff, kind of some changes we'll be doing with this show going forward to kind of spice it up and just try new things. But thanks for joining us.
Yep.
As always, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Stay safe out there. Have a good week and continue to collide with your world for Christ.